Hey, Clubbers, welcome back. This is episode 5 of our Aulani series. And in this episode, we are going to talk about all the other things to do on the island of Oahu.
Yeah, so before going to Aulani, I spent a lot of time watching YouTube videos about things to do all over the island. And this was like, I loved Aulani so much, but being able to rent a car and explore the island. And I think it's a question that a lot of people ask, like, do I need to rent a car? If you want to do these things, you definitely do. And there is so much to explore there. So I highly encourage you to step out of your comfort zone. If leaving the resort it is, outside of your comfort zone, I think that there's so much to explore there that makes, if you're going to go all the way to Hawaii, definitely take advantage of all of the things. So, we did some of the work for you, condensed it a little bit. So enjoy.
I've made no secret that Oahu is not my favorite island. Nothing against it. It's just a little too touristy for me. There's too much going on. Waikiki is way too busy. If I want that kind of busy, I'm just going to go to Vegas because I know Vegas. But there are some really fascinating things on Oahu that everybody should try once. Obviously, the top of that list is Pearl Harbor. That's something that is such a big part of the nation's history and Hawaiian history. And, that's something that does take some advanced reservations if you want to go out to the memorial itself, to the Arizona. But there's a lot to do just besides that. There's the USS Missouri battleship, there's the submarine, there's a lot. You could spend a whole day at Pearl Harbor pretty easily if you do all of the exhibits that they have to offer. They have a walking tour that's self-guided that you do with an iPod, or iPod Touch, I think is what they give you, that you just kind of go at your own pace. But it talks about everything having to do with Pearl Harbor, the Hawaiian impact on the local culture, all the way up to the aftermath and Hawaii becoming a state. And it's just such a fascinating thing to do.
And it's extremely moving. I mean, it was hard to, there are moments where you just really feel emotional because it's such a well done memorial, and the whole state park is just, they've done such a good job of preserving the history, telling the story. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, definitely. Another obviously popular tourist attraction is Waikiki. Now, Waikiki, I feel like Waikiki has two sides of it. There's regular person Waikiki, and then there's rich person Waikiki. And those two experiences are very different for people. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of the high-end shopping that you would see on Rodeo Drive or in Manhattan, New York City, with Gucci and Louis Vuitton and Tiffany's and everything else, right? But then there's regular person Waikiki, where there's ABC stores and affordable places to eat. My thing about Waikiki is I wouldn't go there for the beach, except at sunset. Maybe there's some great sunsets to be had from Waikiki, but when we went, we could have walked from Kalakaua Avenue all the way to the ocean and never touched the sand. We could have just walked on people. It was so busy with so many people that it just wasn't a place to enjoy the beach itself. Waikiki, the strip itself, there's a lot to do. You kind of have to separate those two experiences, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I I mentioned earlier that when we got the poke from the indoor flea market, that we went to the Ala Moana Beach Park to eat it. And at the end of that beach park, where the picnic tables are, you have a great view of Waikiki Beach and the surfers with Diamond Head in the background. So if you want to check out like a really cool vantage point, you've got all of these like Honolulu skyscrapers. You've got the view of Waikiki Beach and all of the surfers, and there are a lot of them in there. I mean, it's like amazing that these people don't smash into each other every 5 seconds, with Diamond Head, the the volcanic crater in the background as the backdrop, and that's a really great spot. So just throwing it out there again as some place where you can go, where you can experience being at the beach and see Waikiki Beach without being on it. The other thing is we ate at Duke's in Waikiki, which is like it's a huge touristy spot, but I think it's worth it because you get to sit outside on the beach on Waikiki Beach, see the surfers. They have live entertainment. It's kind of like Hawaiian style pub fare, but it's a fun, lively environment, and it gives you a little bit of like a taste of being up close with the action on Waikiki Beach.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, Duke's on Sunday has been a thing for Waikiki for as long as I can remember, and I prefer it for breakfast. Sunday brunch for me is a whole different experience than it is for dinner, honestly. But yeah, beautiful views, and they always have live music, and it's I think it lives up to its reputation. Yeah, it's touristy and everybody wants to go there, but I think it's one of those places that actually lives up to what it's selling. So continuing down that coast on the other side of Diamond Head, we talked about it briefly before. Hanauma Bay is a state park. It is a snorkeling beach that is protected by the state of Hawaii. It costs to get in, and there are some rules. Like when you go, you have to watch an orientation video so that you know how to not disturb the coral reefs that are there and the wildlife. In addition, they are very specific as to what sunscreen you can use there. So keep that in mind, and you can get that from their website. We'll put a link in the show notes. But, it's got to be reef-friendly sunscreen so that you're not causing damage. But once you get into that water, once you finally make it down the hill on the golf cart and get into the water, it's breathtaking. And you see every kind of wildlife that you would hope to see. Fish, sea turtles. I saw an eel, like all kinds of different, opportunities from a walkable shore. Like you don't have to go out on a boat to get to it. You can walk right in from the beach, putter around, and it's lifeguard protected, so everybody's safe. But highly recommend it. But that is a thing that you do have to get reservations for. So make sure you check that website out and see what they're
and it's not always open. The hours are, because when I was there, I wanted to go. I brought my snorkel gear, and I was so excited, and I did not realize that the hours were kind of limited, and the day that we went, it was closed. Yeah. Or at least the time that we arrived, it was no longer open. So
yeah, that website. And usually I think the current policy is you can make those reservations 2 days in advance. It's kind of like doing your Genie Plus, at midnight, 2 days out, you jump on and get the time slot you want for what you're hoping to get. And they will not let you in without a reservation. So keep that in mind. A couple other highlights, Polynesian Cultural Center is talked about a lot on any kind of Hawaiian travel log. It's good. I call it Hawaiian Epcot. It's kind of where they hit all of the Polynesian and South Pacific countries in their own little kind of, what do you call them? They kind of have their own little land, kind of like the World Showcase at Epcot. Each little area there's a Fiji and a Tahiti and a Hawaii, and you go around and around, each with, food and drinks from that area. And then the whole day, they've got crafts, they've got music that you can learn and stuff like that. It's a pretty expensive day ticket, and you can't get alcohol there at all. The Polynesian Cultural Center is actually run by LDS Church, the Mormon Church. And so alcohol is not anywhere to be found, but you can also walk over and see, the Honolulu Hawaiian Temple, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, it's probably good to do it once. They do a really good job in the luau. If you pay for the luau package, it's a stellar luau. I would dare say equal to better than Aulani's, but I just didn't feel like there was enough to do during the day to warrant the cost of it. So not far from the Polynesian Culture Store is the North Shore, which there's plenty to do up there. You went up there, didn't you? I don't go up there as often, so.
We did. We went up to the Waimea Falls. We hiked there, and that's for anybody who wants to hike but is not like a hiker. There, it's a paved trail the whole way, and it's surrounded by botanical gardens, and you eventually arrive at the falls, which are, I mean, they're not huge falls, but they're there. If you were a fan of the show Lost, there were a couple of scenes that were filmed in the pools underneath the waterfalls there. The thing about the North Shore is that the water there is absolutely gorgeous. It's like turquoise. It's different. It's a different color than it is on the rest of the island.
Yes.
So, and it's also got a totally different vibe than the rest of the island. Like, I feel like it's definitely less commercial there. The water is bluer. It just feels a little bit more laid back and a little bit slower paced than the rest of the island. We actually did a horseback riding tour on the beach there, which I loved because the beaches on the North Shore are gorgeous. And the North Shore is where during the winter, the waves are like massive, and the surfers come in the winter to surf on these like gargantuan waves. When we were there during the summer, it wasn't like that, but you definitely get this like very, very different vibe on the North Shore. I loved it there. We went there on our last day there, and I wish that we had gone earlier because I probably would have gone back and explored a little bit more. And that's where I said there's also great snorkeling along the different beaches there, and a lot of different little coves. There's the North Shore is also where all of the famous food trucks are. So, if you hear about the food trucks, that's where they are. There are the shrimp trucks that are there that people love. So definitely look into that, do some research about where those are located, because that's, for a lot of people, those are must-dos.
Yeah.
But I loved it.
Yeah, the North Shore, if you ever have the opportunity to be there at the same time as the surfing competitions that are held on the North Shore, that is a day well spent. It is so much fun to watch these guys ride these massive, massive waves. And it's a competition setting. So, the crowds are into it, and the surfers are into it, and they're there to take pictures with the fans. It's really a fun experience for sure. Any other kind of off the beaten stuff that you wanted to talk about before we wrap up?
Yeah, one of my favorite things that I did on my entire trip there was I drove, first of all, when you're coming from the East Coast and going to Hawaii, you wake up at like 3:30 in the morning. So you are up to see the sunrise every single morning. And one morning I got up, it was still dark, and I drove over to the windward side of the island, which is the east side of the island. Ko Olina is located on the leeward side. And there's a beach on the windward side called Lanikai Beach. And it's one of like the most famous Hawaiian beaches. It's got these two mounds sticking out of the water in the distance called the Mokes, where apparently back when Hawaii was its own like sovereign nation, and they had a king and a queen, those waters were considered like holy and sacred, and the king and queen would go over there and bathe in the waters there. But the sunrise, you can see it from that beach, and it rises right over the Mokes, and it is absolutely breathtaking. And so I definitely recommend taking the ride over to that side of the island to watch the sunrise. If you're a hiker, I did not. I wanted to do this, but I didn't, because my daughter wouldn't wake up that early with me, because even though there was a time change, she's a teenager and she could sleep until 10 o'clock no matter what. So I didn't want to do the hike by myself, but there is a pillbox hike that you can do that's like up the mountain behind the beach, where you can hike up to one of the pillboxes, the Lanikai pillbox, and watch the sunrise from there. And that, so getting over there for sunrise, I think is a must do. The other thing is that there's a valley of, I think it's called the Valley of the Gods, where there is a Buddhist temple, and we went and we saw that. It's called the Byodoin temple. It's also, if you're a fan of Lost, it is where Sun and Jin got married in one of those episodes. So, and that was a beautiful thing to see. Absolutely loved that. And then also there's just, there's the couple of different farms. There's like macadamia nut farms, and then there's the Dole pineapple farm. I did not go to the Dole pineapple farm, but I did go to one of the to the macadamia nut farms and bought macadamia nuts, and they had some fresh coffee that you could buy, which was all amazing. So, I think that, my recommendation to anyone who is going is to, a lot of these tours can be really expensive. There's the tour that will bring you to where Jurassic Park was filmed. You can ride an ATV and see where Jurassic Park was filmed. But there are so many ways to see so many beautiful things on that island that will not cost you anything other than the price of renting your car. And so I basically did the entire loop around the island and saw some of this scenic views like Chinaman's Hat and some of the other, like Coco Crater, and dined at different places on the island. We went to the original Roy's. I talked about the Roy's that is in the Ko'olina Golf Club, but we went to the first Roy's that was ever opened. And that's very close to Coco Crater and Hanauma Bay. So I definitely recommend just exploring, because the island, it's amazing because it's one island, but because of the way the wind blows and because of the way the vegetation grows, the different parts of the islands all look different and have a different vibe. And Honolulu is a city. It is a city in the middle of an island, just like New York is a city in the middle of an island. So each different part of the island has its different vibe, and I think it's totally worth renting a car and driving around to explore it, because some of my highlights were doing things like watching the sunrise or taking the horseback ride on the North Shore. Those were things that just allowed me to kind of take in the beauty of the island, because we go to Aulani and we talk about the beauty of the resort and of the culture, but it is based on the real things that are on that island that you can actually go see. And so I just think that it's totally worth it. If you're going to fly to Hawaii to visit Aulani, you should take in some of these sites and do some of these things.
Well, and that's not unique to Oahu, to be fair, because every single island in the Hawaiian island chain has the different ecosystems and the different, cultural impacts and the different vegetation. Kauai on one side looks like Arizona. On the other side, it's the most lush tropical jungles you've ever seen. Maui's the same way. The Big Island, there's parts of the Big Island that's just sagebrush and desert that looks like southern Idaho. But then you get down to the green sand and the black sand beaches and the volcanoes that are always erupting and lava flowing that you can actually go and look at. And that's kind of where I wanted to end this conversation. Was Aulani has a draw for people like me that don't even care to go to Oahu very often. But you can tag that on if you don't want to do, like we talked about at the beginning, the California add-ons. It's really easy to do a split stay and an island hop. There's flights out of Honolulu Airport to Kauai, to Maui, to the Big Island every hour. It is so easy to get over there to those other islands and spend some time. Kauai is my home. It's my favorite place I've ever been. It's not really my home. It's my dream home. But it's so easy to hop over. The last time we went, we did 4 days on Oahu, 4 days on Kauai. It was perfect. We got the best of both worlds, and then we pieced out, So don't be afraid to expand your horizons and step outside of that Aulani bubble, as amazing as it is, Hawaii in and of itself is a place like no other. And everything that you can think of that you would want to do in a paradise. You know, you talked about seeing Jurassic Park. My favorite thing I've ever done in Kauai was a helicopter tour that actually landed at the base of the waterfall that they show in that opening, you know, as the helicopter descends. You can get out and actually walk to that waterfall and take pictures, but it's only accessible by helicopter. You know, there's so many things to do. That get the guide. There's a blue book on Amazon that has each of the islands on it. Go and get it. I'll put a link in the show notes as well, because it's got dining reviews. They've got attraction reviews. You want to snorkel, you want to scuba dive, you want to get in a shark cage, you want to go ATVing, you want to go on a Jeep safari. Hawaii has it all.
I could talk all day about the things that I love, but I won't.
Yeah.
And I'll spare everyone that, but you know,
it covers it all, but it also doesn't begin to cover it.
Exactly. So, I mean, I hope that this gives everyone a thorough enough overview that you feel a little bit more comfortable about knowing what to expect, but also inspires you to kind of dig a little deeper, because there is so much to do and see at the resort itself and then on the island. So if you haven't been, I definitely recommend putting it on your bucket list, because it will not disappoint.
Yeah, definitely. And to that point, you know, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to the group, reach out to us. I know there's other people out there that are probably even more experts than we are. I know I don't consider myself an expert, but you know, there's plenty to be had and plenty of help.
Consider myself an enthusiast.
There you go. Kauai, I could consider myself an expert. I've been there about a dozen times and I can answer all the questions there, but Aulani only once for me. So, and with that, we'll wrap up this special edition of DVC Clubhouse. Aloha and mahalo for joining us, and we'll DVC you real soon.
Bye-bye, everyone.